Thank you, Justin, and thanks to the amazing speakers for bringing so many different perspectives and your experience. This was extremely interesting and valuable. I think there were so many interesting questions in the chat box. Unfortunately, we don't have time for all of them, but we will keep them all and we will go back to you. We are recording the summit, so don't worry, we will read everything. We will come back to you, and thank you for being so active in reacting to all our speakers. So we now move to the last panel, and I would invite Lisa Friedman, who is the next moderator of the final panel, which is about how we inspire people to take care of the ocean.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us online. My name is Lisa Friedman. Happy World Oceans Day. I'm a climate change reporter like Justin work for the New York Times. I'm based in Washington, and I mostly cover what the Trump administration and Congress are doing or not doing to address global warming. So very different vibe. And I am really excited to have learned as much as I did this morning in these two first really engaging panels about what policymakers and scientists and others are doing to engage on sustainability and ocean protection. I'm really excited about this next panel. We have a wonderful group of artists, musicians, athletes, fashion leaders, and others who are going to engage in what I hope will be a really enlightening, discussion of how cultural diplomacy can help us work with scientists and policymakers and others to protect our oceans. So with that, we're going to start with Alexia Barre. She is a professional sailor and a top-level match racer who has covered more than 120,000 nautical miles around the globe in her 20-year career. She's also been working with scientists to capture critical data about the ocean. Alexia, let me turn this first over to you.
Hello.
We can see you. Hi.
Hi. So thank you. I'm so proud to be here and to celebrate World Ocean Day with you today. I will introduce myself quickly. I'm a sailor. My first time on sailing boat was when my parents moved from Paris to Nice. I was 3 years old, lucky me. Because otherwise it was not the easiest track I was about to take. My parents are not rich or famous in the yachting world, but they gave me something most precious, that passion for the sea. So I was working and training hard, and I realized at 20 that I was one of the best sailors of my age. And it was time for me to take the next step and find a sponsor to cross the Atlantic single-handed when I was 20. So I met a company, and 1 month later I had a budget. I'd buy my first boat and cross the Atlantic single-handed from France to Brazil on a 6.5-meter boat, really a tiny one. Since then, I've raced across the Atlantic 17 times and sailed with the most famous sailor. And when I was 30, it was my 10th crossing Atlantic. I was going to USA, and something happened to me. For the first time in my life, arriving on shore, I did not realize that I was close to land thanks to the specific beautiful smell of the land. I knew that I was close because of the tons of trash and plastic and waste I could see in the sea. From this time, I was not going to be only a sailor. I had something to do about it. I didn't know what exactly at this time, because I'm not a scientist. The only thing I was sure of is that I'm sailing more than 200 days per year, and I can do something. So I get to meet scientists. At first, they were not listening to me. Scientists are different than sailors. And when I told them that I could help, they answer no. But it should happen to you because most of the time when you ask something, the first answer is no. Anyway, I continued talking to them and reading and trying to understand what I could do. And finally, I met scientists like Petit de la Villéon. And I met many scientists after that. They gave me the opportunity to contribute to oceanographic research. I was installing instruments on my boat. So I take samples and I work with different scientists and different programs on ocean observation since 10 years now. And I also work with Atomic Energy Agency. So for me, the scientists are the great person and great stars. And I'm really proud to work for them. But when I'm sailing single-handed, when I get to face the sea, the big waves, the strong winds, we had to find a way that this instrument is not a difficulty for me. So everything is automatic on board. And I can bring, when I'm sailing, more than 1 million data that help scientists understand more about the climate change and the ocean. They are also able to work on the satellite calibration with these data. And 10 years after my first sailing for science, I was the first woman sailor on a racing boat doing this job for scientists. I was sailing 5 months on my own, more than 40,000 kilometers. And now, 10 years after that, we are many sailors doing the job. And with IMOCA class, we are the sailors going around the world racing in the Vendée Globe. And we are really involved for the preservation of oceans. So I've done this trip, the first trip 10 years ago, and now we can see consequences for the world and the ocean.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you more about what you have been finding. I'm embarrassed to say that I was so excited to get to our panelists that I forgot to introduce a wonderful video that we have to show. So let me divert and go back to that for a moment. I'd like to introduce a video by Anne de Carbuccia. It's called One Planet, One Future.
Hello, my name is Anne de Carbuccia, and I'm an environmental artist and filmmaker. I grew up in Corsica, and in a way, the ocean has always been a part of me. My art has definitely been inspired by our ocean from the very beginning. I think that seeing the changes over the years from when I was a little girl, especially with the reefs, had a really big impact on me as a person and as an artist. I felt I was like losing something I had always known and loved. And is also so important for the future and the survival of our planet. I wanted to share what I was witnessing with everybody. So I chose to do it through my art, through images that could have an impact and send out a message, but that were beautiful enough that people would want to look at them and want to know more about what they were saying. So I started creating these installations for the ocean that I call time shrines. And I use powerful symbols referring to time and loss. But I place these installations in very beautiful natural settings. The scope was to help people to know more about our ocean, love it, and feel responsible for it. Through the art and my message, I want to inspire people as individuals and show them that they can make a difference. that together we can all make a difference. If you look at my art, you really cannot escape its message. It visually shows you the importance and frailty of our water planet. But it also shows you that it's still there, although it's at risk. That there is hope if we act now.
Thank you so much. Looks like I've got my own video working. You'd think after 3 months working from home, I would have all of the online systems worked out properly. Those were wonderful. I want to turn now to Lorenzo Bertelli. He is the head of corporate social responsibility at Prada. Lorenzo, tell us a little about Renylon and the work that you and the fashion industry is doing to address ocean health.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, all. Thank you, everybody, for these opportunities. And as Lisa just said, Renylon has been a tremendous opportunity for the group to show that sustainability can be something real and not just a word. There is maybe a very short movie, about 2 minutes, that I would like, if it's possible, to add, and then I will continue.
The Prada Renylon project is crossing 5 continents to connect with upcycling initiatives that are turning harmful waste into pristine new products. Actor Alex Fitzallen and National Geographic explorer Asher DeVos are in New Zealand to uncover a hidden threat to the oceans.
We've explored less than 20% of our world's oceans, yet we've impacted about 90% of that space.
Yeah, it's easy to look at the ocean and just see this wilderness. But really, it's this complex ecosystem, and over the past few decades, we're only just realizing the damage that we're actually doing.
I work with whales and dolphins. We see evidence of entanglement scars on our animals all the time. They are being killed by all this ghost gear in our oceans.
Some of these ghost nets can be 4 or 5 kilometres long. So you're entrapping dolphins and whales and turtles and all these wonderful creatures. We're all volunteers, so this is stuff we do in our free time. I'm so lucky to have such a great team of people who are happy to put their hands up and say, hey, we're going to come and help you guys out. And it takes a lot of planning and organisation. Recovering these ghost nets, we usually rely quite heavily on sort of local intel. We'll mark it with GPS. We can then go back and dive it again. Once you're in the water, there are still a lot of dangers involved.
How do you go about preparing for something like that?
There's a lot of training. It's very low visibility. You'd be down to like a metre, 11-degree water, so you've got to have proper thermal protection. With the nets themselves, we use lift bags. It'll bring the net to the surface. You can end up with the nets really full with a lot of dead creatures. It's pretty horrific when you come across them initially.
The Healthy Seas Initiative has removed about 500 tonnes of ghost fishing gear. Divers all around the world are retrieving those nets and sending them over to Europe where they're recycled into other products.
Yes, the net we've recovered today, it's a 40 metres plus net. It's good to get that out of the water and getting out there and doing it. Sense of achievement, working with the community, working with a team of friends and divers. We do it because we love the ocean. We want to make a difference.
10% of all plastic waste in the oceans is ghost gear. It's inspiring to think that there are teams of volunteers all across the world that go out to retrieve these nets.
Yeah, and that the nets can be transformed into brand new products that carry this positive marine conservation message.
So this video for us represents something quite revolutionary because it's not just a capsule, and nylon is our iconic product, and we proved that the sustainability can be real already in a mass market like ours, and the fact that most of the time sustainability is not always sustainable in terms of economics, but I think to prove that it works in terms of marketing, it works in terms of economic sustainability, and this is actually it's just a capsule, but by the end of next year we can completely use only sustainable fiber, and I really hope this can be a signal for our industries, because we really need that people comes on board on this kind of project, and there are already a lot around. For me is also, I would like to underline that part of the money that of the revenue from this project actually has been donated to UNESCO for a project, for a partnership with UNESCO, in way to achieve a scholarship and to teach to younger generation and educate school children on how much is vital the role of oceans in our world future. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, by something that we hope to restart already this year, we had to postpone it, but it's something that for sure we're gonna start immediately after when this crisis will end. And you know, to put sustainability at the center of a group of a company like us, I think has to prove and show that a sustainable future is possible.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
Next, we have Can Büyükberber. He is a visual artist and creative director from Turkey. Can, tell us a little bit about your work and how you think about visualizing the relationship between people and nature and technology.
Sure. Can you hear me, Lisa?
Yes, you're great.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. First of all, I feel very honored to be a participant and listen to all the stories of these great minds who is hard at the right place. And I want to thank you to our viewers for joining us today. So for almost a decade now, I've been working with emerging new media technologies in order to create immersive audiovisual works that pushes the boundaries of the traditional narrative structure of art, cinema, and music. I have a little presentation video. Maybe we can play it in the background and I can talk over it. Cool. Thank you. So these projects sometimes takes place as a large-scale projection installations in public, sometimes within geodesic domes or virtual reality headsets, or as 3D printed sculptures. I've been very fortunate to be involved in interdisciplinary collaborations with scientists and software developers, architects, physicists, neuroscientists, musicians, wellness teachers, and I'm always looking forward to expand my interface with the reality through these through such dialogues. And I've experienced how these new media can be very powerful to raise public awareness on the vital matters of our time. I'm not going to talk about all these projects one by one, but if you're interested, you can watch all those projects I did on my website. Also, last year, I had a chance to work with native Hawaiian students at Kamehameha Schools Maui and coach them to create on the issues of their island using design thinking and technology. So it was a great time for me to observe the Pacific culture and fuel my visual imagination for my future work. So as our daily lives are surrounded by digital technologies exponentially, we're moving toward living more and more in the digital worlds, and our jobs, emotions, friendships, our art, everything is performed more and more in these digital realm, in some cases as a cool extension of our lives, but sometimes out of necessity, just like this virtual summit now. So as artists and designers, we have a chance to be the architects of this future reality and decide how the aesthetics and the interaction between digital and physical world are going to take place, and how it is utilized to speak of what is really important. So in my work, I view the nature as the greatest artwork ever emerged through the fundamental forces that holds our universe and ecosystems together. And as we observe our planet deeper, we see these emergent properties everywhere, from the formation of rocks to flocking of birds, swarm of fish, how our cities and society structures and form themselves. And we can perceive these invisible principle that shapes and connects all these different processes. So these are my biggest source of inspiration, these processes, and I love mimicking nature in order to create new virtual worlds and see what is possible beyond by playing with these variables that we can observe in the nature and organisms. So I see the role of artists and the use of emerging technologies are vital to make this invisible intelligence more visible and spread these stories to the global network as wide as possible so that we can sharpen our senses and our minds to understand our place on the planet better. And exploring this, I think, artistic expression that is fueled by the beauty of the nature, which back then started with poetry, cave paintings, later abstract expression came in cinema and music, and toward these holistic immersive virtual worlds we can create and audiences can travel into, we can witness richer stories and experiences that expand our minds. So when Görkem approached me for this project, I felt very excited. I also experienced the dome last year in Maui Ocean Center and saw how it can be really beautifully utilized to raise awareness on the state of the oceans. And while preparing this teaser video we are about to watch, I tried to merge these generative, synergetic digital forms with the railways and the winds and the landscape to highlight and honor these relationships to perceive better and find ourselves within it as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is beautiful. I'm going to turn now to John Canning. He is an interactive and mixed reality producer and producer of Digital Domain. John, tell us a little bit about your work, please. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. I always love that positive feedback. So my work at Digital Domain as a producer is to focus on leveraging Digital Domain's history of about 26 years of visual effects, creating artistry for movies, film, and bringing that to other mediums. I have a long background of interactive and immersive media in the people would call XR today, but including other forms that would extend everywhere to the projection mapping, to holograms, to creating digital humans, to creating interactive television. But my passion has always been to how to leverage my skills and expertise into more focused in helping the planet. So I have found my opportunity throughout different years and different occupations, helping build documentaries, interactive media sites, creating VR pieces, and most recently at Digital Domain, we were proud to partner with Time Inc. And create something called The March, which was a historical recreation of Dr. King's speech in VR and in the Lincoln Memorial. And so suddenly that becomes very timely. And we premiered in a museum in Chicago, the DuSable Museum. We hope to bring it to other places as a way of presenting living history to immerse people into those environments. And so I've had the opportunity to join with Görkem on the project to think about how do we continue to help visualize and help convey the message of the challenges of the oceans and the opportunities that people can have. So from my expertise as a producer and a creator, it's helping to pull these amazing artists that we have here and organizations together, and so we can create something truly immersive and illustrative of what we need to, of the messages we need to convey.
Thank you, John. We're going to bring some terrific sound artists into the conversation in a few minutes, but before that, I'm really excited to bring Görkem Hayta into this discussion. She's a cultural diplomacy expert. She helped arrange a lot of the discussion that you see before you right now. And Görkem, I'd love if you could kind of, lay out for us what cultural diplomacy really is, and bring all of these threads together for us in how we can how we can join art and science and music and policy making and and sports and movement into one larger engagement.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for this nice introduction. Hello, everyone. And I first want to thank all the artists who supported me during this past week in particular. Like, everything happened very last minute, but I was so lucky that I had a good network and good supporters who immediately saw the vision that I shared through cultural diplomacy, which is a very basic, simple project which is using creative discourses like fashion, music, art, design, dance, performance, anything you can think of that is making you shake your hips and like your shoulders and makes you say like, I want to do something, but I want to have fun at the same time. And this is what I felt like I wanted to bring into this ocean decade of science and actions, to talk about this one ocean that we are like trying to preserve and stopping to blame and shame, because like I don't think that is going to contribute to the solutions we're striving to get. And that being said, before we go over to the video demonstration, I want to say like how everything came together with me being specialized on cultural diplomacy. It all happened when I worked in politics for the ex-foreign minister of Turkey, Yaşar Yakış, to whom I'm like forever grateful, because he's the person who coined the term in my brain, cultural diplomacy. I never knew that you could use creative terms of like making policy making, negotiating. I was just like, how is that possible? But as I interned for him, worked with him, and I was always in touch with him when he came to Berlin or other places in Europe, I attended his speeches, and I was just like, oh, one day I want to work on cultural diplomacy. And actually 3 years ago, when I went to my first ocean conference, my immediate thought was like, you need cultural diplomacy to talk about these issues. It could be a really good means to tell these great solution stories, but also shed a light on like the problems, but always being like action oriented. And for me, this all actually came together, and this is going to be also my invitation to the audience by saying like, become a drop in the ocean and like a ripple effect, join this movement of the ocean and create with the United Nations this one united ocean. And I have actually two quotes that two friends of mine shared with me as I was writing so much, and I'm using words since my background is linguistics all the time. I felt like I'm running out of words, but I have so many great ideas. How can I communicate them? And I would just refer to these quotes of one of my closest friends, Luis Gomez. He's like my second brother from a Portuguese mother, and I had to drop this. He said, just like for the ripple effect, he said, just unpacking the ripple effect idea below. The ripple is an individual action which people can commit to taking. Make a ripple of change in our ocean, make waves of change in our planet. We can each make ripples in our ocean which combine to make positive waves of change in our planet. What change will you make? And from there, I'm just going to quote another friend of mine who's also specialized in marketing and communication. We worked together for gender equality with the UN Women LA chapter. She referred to one of my greatest inspirational poets and philosophers, Mevlana Rumi. She said, maybe also something along the lines of Rumi, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in the drop. We are the drop and the ocean. With every word, thought, and action, like every drop, we create waves in the ocean. And with the upcoming video that I hope we're going to share now before Merve Dashdemir from Altıngun is going to take the floor, I just want to say, like, sometimes, like, there's so many words we can use to describe a problem and also find the solutions, but sometimes you don't need any word, you don't need any language, the music is doing the trick. And as you're going to watch this immersive audiovisual piece, I hope, like, whatever I said being like super excited and honored being part of this. And I'm thanking Francesca Santoro for having trusted me, for having taken me on board for this first virtual Ocean Literacy Summit that I think was beautifully like coming along with all the great speakers. And I'm looking forward to what is going to emerge after these talks. But I think let's move definitely from talking to actions, and let's create more content that is shaking everyone, from policymakers to scientists to the creatives and like the introverted people who cannot showcase what they want to showcase. But let's also make sure that we have an inner harmony that is reflected inside out. And on that note, let's showcase the video with the official release actually of Altın Gün's new release, Kesik Çayır.
Şeker yesinler, şu kız şu oğlana yanlış desinler. Aman desinler desinler, şeker yesinler, şu kız şu oğlana yanlış desinler. Aman desinler desinler, şeker yesinler, şu kız şu oğlana yanlış desinler. Aman desinler desinler, şeker yesinler, şu kız şu oğlana yanlış desinler. Aman ben yandım 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 yandım, ellerin memleketinde eğlendim kaldım. Aman desinler desinler, şeker yesinler, şu kız şu oğlana yanlış desinler. Aman desinler desinler, şeker yesinler, şu kız şu oğlana yanlış desinler. Aman ben yandım 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 yandım, ellerin memleketinde eğlendim kaldım. Aman ben yandım 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 yandım, ellerin memleketinde eğlendim kaldım.
That was beautiful. Merv, are you with us?
I am actually right here.
Hi, Merve.
My internet dropped. Thank you. I'm Merve from Altın Gün. Great to be here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the panelists. And I've learned a great deal all morning about this subject. And thank you, Görkem, for involving us last minute in this beautiful project. You know, as a green band, we care deeply about our planet, and we're very happy to be a part of the Ocean Literacy Summit. I guess music, like the ocean, transcends above any language and culture and race. And I've been super fortunate to experience that the musical heritage from my childhood has found a way to connect people all over the world who don't even speak the language, which still feels like a miracle to me. We're a band that used to travel 1/3 of the year before COVID-19 world, obviously. And being a green band, we've always calculated and compensated the carbon footprint of our travels. We have a very plant-based vegetarian rider. We have a very strict no plastic rule in our backstages and dressing rooms. We encourage venues to support their local products. I think the music industry still has to find ways to function in a more sustainable manner, but luckily there are more and more green initiatives I see happening. We also recently, with all the lockdowns, that if we take drastic measures, the ocean goes on a really fast recovery pollution levels dropped, dolphins were back at the Bosphorus, and many more examples of how our planet and the ocean thrives without our negative influences. So it's very helpful and very inspiring to see how people from different disciplines are finding inventive and sustainable ways to save our planet. And I feel there's a growing awareness of our responsibility towards our planet and all the life that it supports. As Görkem just quoted, if we make a ripple of change in our ocean, we can make waves of change in our planet. So happy World Ocean Day. That's
Thank you.
Thank
you. There's so many Turkish people on the panel. I feel like I need to use my little bit of Turkish. Before we turn to our last speaker, I'm so excited about Reem Abdul, who also goes by Dreamy, sound artist and ethnomusicologist and founder of Collector Bay. I want to just remind everyone we'll be going to questions soon after that, and so I encourage you to put questions in the chat box. With that, Dreamy, let me turn to you, please. You have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
An honor to be here. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to my panelists, who are some of the most incredible people I've met, and I mean that honestly. Wow. I remember earlier in the summit somebody saying in a video something that we know, which is we've only explored about 20% or something of this in our oceans. And it reminds me very much of just human consciousness. People who study the brain and consciousness say we've only explored about 20% or utilize only about 20% of our consciousness potential. So what drives me in my sound art and my work is this kind of exploration. You see here a quote from Nikola Tesla that I love. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. We are all vibratory beings. We all operate on a spectrum of frequency. And so, like Merve said, sound is one of the most impactful things that can inspire us, can catalyze us, can move us into action. So just an idea of this, just to give you perspective around how much we're able to just see and perceive. We think we're seeing the whole world out there. We think from a drone shot, we can imagine the vastness and the infinity of the ocean. But even if we just kind of think about how much we can perceive light, we see only 1/10 of billionth of the information that's riding on the electromagnetic spectrum. This quote from Nassim Haramein says, even though we accept the reality that's presented to us, we're really only seeing a little window of what's happening. So if we can think that we only have explored about 20% of the ocean, what haven't we seen? How far-reaching are the impacts of our human behavior? So sound really starts to become a tool for me to reckon with these questions and not just inspire myself into a space of agency, but people around me. The image you're seeing here is of the science of cymatics, which is the power of sound to kind of impact the frequency, the vibration. This right here is water samples. On the left is 432 hertz, a vibration that's historically been thought of as high vibrational healing. And on the right, it's only about 440 hertz, not a huge difference, but you can see the impact it's made in the way the water perceives and organizes itself. We know we're about 80% water. We are majority and mostly water. So can you imagine what sound does for us? On this next slide, you'll see this kind of crude drawing of a human being. If I had to do it over again, I'd do it a little differently, but you get the idea. The way in which vibrations affect us are at really every level and dimension. We understand, for example, our physical body, our corporal self, and the way that sound can move us into dance. It can galvanize us into action. We can become fearful. We can become anxious. We can become calm, feeling restored. But there's so many other layers of catalyzation that happen, the etheric level, the astral level, the mental level, the spiritual level, all these levels in which we are impacted by what we hear and perceive that we are not even quite sure of just yet. And this is reflected in the ocean, the depths of the ocean that we haven't traveled to. So the way in which I use sound and have been using sound for the last several years is to expand and awaken consciousness. Just by knowing these kinds of scientific understandings of sound and its impact on humans inspires me to create sound that's not only used for movement and celebration, the way in which Merve and Altıngun make sound so incredibly, but also in spaces of meditation. If we can use sound and meditation to understand really deeply at an embodied level just how vast and infinite we are and our impact is, maybe we can better empathize with our ocean. Maybe we can better show up for our climate if we know just how much it can impact. I know we're going to get into a conversation about kind of the social unrest that's happening. I'm here in New York City and very much a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's influenced directly how I create sound and how I lead meditations. But I guess we'll save this conversation. But I want to share a little bit about the work I've been doing with an organization I started a few years ago called Collective Bay. And initially it started as a space for women artists of all disciplines, of all cultural traditions to share their wisdom, share their art in a space around healing justice and social justice. And it's evolved since then to be a space for feminine energy. One of the first speakers of the summit this morning said he thinks of the ocean and the earth as a mother. I think we're remembering that our mother birthed us. From our mother, we rely on nourishment. To our mother will return, and our mother is suffering now. And so the spaces that I create with Bay are a laboratory for that exploration, using sound, music, dance, ceremony, ritual, traditional instruments, ancient wisdom to remember so that we can be moved into action. So how about a minute of an event, a ceremony that we had last year around water and another plant medicine, cacao, an ancient Mayan plant medicine, and you could see it here. Enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish I could have an hour-long discussion with each of you on the work that you're doing. Unfortunately, we only have a very few last minutes for questions. I'll try and get a couple in. We have one so far from the audience that is about music. Please forgive me if I mispronouncing the name. Horadar writes, music can inspire us and be a tool to help us be inspired more by the ocean. How is the messaging in the songs tailored to creating awareness about the ocean, the threats, the diversity, and the importance? You know, whether Reem or Merve or, you know, either of you might want to take that. and offer some thoughts? Maybe Reem, we could start with you. I'm sorry, should I refer to you as Reem or Dreamers?
You know, whatever comes naturally.
Okay.
Just curious to me. So, me personally, I use sound that is directly evocative of nature and specifically of the ocean, the healing frequencies of nature. So, I record samples of the ocean when I'm there, record samples of birds when I'm in the forest. And I feel like this kind of preservation of sound and space is a kind of cultural diplomacy. The sounds are rooted in a place, rooted in a time, and through the music that I create, the melodies, the chords, the harmonies, the drums, whatever it is that I've gathered in my inspiration, I can create a story. And that's really, I think, what we are as musicians and artists, is we're storytellers. Like Jan was saying earlier, we are in an amazing position to create the future in this new technological dimension and paradigm. And sound, like I mentioned, is one of the most impactful ways. And another way in which that happens is we're able to really communicate across cultural lines. I'm able to gather tribal recordings that tell a story about protection of the ecosystem. I'm able to remix an Altın Gün song that is a version of an old Turkish song that talks about nature. So it's this way of being able to speak to many different human experiences and catalyze many different potentials and individual capacities at one time in the span of 2, 3, 4 minutes.
And maybe just in the time we have, if each each of our panelists can maybe talk about what are some of the either big challenges or maybe opportunities that you think you face either as an artist and musician in the fashion industry and sports and movement in telling these stories, and by doing so in encouraging action. Maybe we can kind of start from the top. Lorenzo, can I get and again, if we can sort of limit it to a minute or so from each. I'm sorry for the shortness at the end, but we had so many wonderful presentations. Lorenzo, why don't we go back to you?
I'll start. I would say the challenges again is to try to bring this idea of being sustainable, that for sure is in, I hope, in all of us, to make it effective, and we have to remind that to be sustainable, it must be sustainable at 360 degrees, and so to bring this idea effective, you have to go through a lot of complexities. And technologies are helping this evolution, because already I think we just passed an important step that the customer wants a more sustainable environment and product, if we talk about products. So this is, I think, is already a big step that has been achieved, and this is for sure the most important. But then you have to provide it in a sustainable way. I think this is the most complex part for a company to achieve this, because it goes through a lot of data, it goes through a lot of technicalities and complexities. So I would say this is the hardest part, is to make it 360 degrees sustainable, and not just in terms of environment, because then you have also to pay salary of the people, and so it's also important to keep paying them. So it's very important to, when you have a sustainable deal, to be at 360 degrees. Okay, sorry, I lost you because you were in mute.
You're fine. Alexia, are you still with us? Bye.
Yes, I'm here. For us, as a sailor and professional sportsman and woman, the challenge is to inspire young generation, inspire the kids. When you do great sailing adventure at sea, it's the perfect way to tell stories to the kids and give them the ability to love oceans and to be able after that to preserve oceans. So what we have to do now is just for us, it's not so hard, and it's to find money to do the races and equip the boats with more instruments for science, and then tell the stories to the kids, give them confidence, show them that everything is possible, and they just need to go for it, go for your dreams, and that's the most important for us.
I love that. John, do you survey? I think there you are.
Yeah, hi. So from my point of view as an artist, I think there is nothing we can really complain in terms of our tools, and our ways of communication has never been better. So we have all the potential, all the tools, all the technology to create these stories. But the challenge is, I think, is the timeless challenge of classic human drama to, keep our intentions pure, keep our focus, stay away from distractions, not let the power or the opportunities corrupt you. Like this applies to every one of us and all the societies. So I think the challenge is to keep our intentions pure and focused to tell these stories, because we have all the availabilities, we have all the tools we need.
Other John Canning.
I think, and he said it best, as artists and creators, I find myself constantly trying to ask the question of how can I lend my skills to telling important messages. And it's the most satisfying moment when you can tell a story and reach an audience and help them understand a new world and a different perspective. And so I look forward to continuing down this path. And it's the confluence of all these brilliant people, their talents, and how do you mold that into a story and take it to the audience. And that's just our continual fight and opportunity. The oceans, to me, has always been one of those things that needs a voice. And there's a lot of brilliant people out there that are doing great work, and many of them here that spoke today on the forefront, and they just need people to know about that, and they need to amplify that message. And so that's our opportunity and the challenge.
Thank you. Dreamy, maybe we can move on to you and come back. And I know that you had specifically referenced the Black Lives Matter movement. I'd love if you can also intersect this thought with how cultural diplomacy can also help move the needle as we are talking as a nation and as a world about racism and about social justice and about environmental justice.
Yeah, Lisa, they're one and the same. I think we're seeing now the unrest of hundreds of years of build-up, centuries of built-up tension and frustration around ways in which certain communities have been extracted from and have experienced a history of colonialism, slavery, oppression. And if I didn't say communities, you would think I'd be talking about the ocean. The ocean's experienced the exact same condition. But you see that interconnection really tangibly. I mean, when you go to these communities and drinking water is polluted, or when you go to tribal and indigenous communities that had a wealth of resources and they don't even have water access, or their rivers and their lakes have dried up into desert. And you kind of have, I find myself equating the oppression of human beings to the oppression of planetary life in the ocean. We are one planetary family in the family of things. And so when one of our community, whether it be human or a dolphin or a creature of any kind, is oppressed, we all collectively feel that frustration. So I almost feel like the climate injustice that's been happening for so long is in tandem with a history of social injustice. And they inform one another. I mean, when you kind of boil it down, they're each based on these really tired, outdated, and oppressive economic systems that lead policymakers and leaders all over the world invariably to abuse and to practice injustice in the laws that are passed, the policies, the communications between nations, the dominations of nations and oceans. So for me, they are one and the same. And it's amazing to see the Black Lives Matter movement wake up other oppressed groups, indigenous peoples, native peoples. I see somebody mention Latinos, people of color, brown and Black people. And at the same time, an awakening around climate happening, but also hope in both of these movements. For all the unrest and hopelessness, there is a lot of hope and innovative solutions that we're able to really now, for the first time, consider for real.
What a wonderful note to go out on. All of you have given us so much to think about. I'm really honored to have been able to virtually moderate this panel. I'm going to turn this over to Gorkem and Francesca, and thank you for having us and putting on such a wonderful event. Happy Oceans Day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I just wanted to add one more note, and obviously if the artists weren't part of this video creation that happened very, very last minute, if you just knew we handed in everything 1 hour prior to our appearance here, I just want to make sure as a marketing and communications professional who is specialized on cultural diplomacy, because I was in politics and I was in the fashion industry in Paris, in Australia and Sydney for the 20th anniversary of Australia Fashion Week in 2015. I then moved to work with NGOs and the UN system for gender equality, ocean health, and blue fashion, and many different things. And I always think there are great stories to tell, but it always comes down to the budget. And for me, climate justice is also about social justice and cultural justice. I would always say let's honor the artists and make sure that they get paid. This is something that is really dear to me, and that's why I launched my collective movement for artists called the Experiential Atelier. I'm sure there will be another moment where we can talk more about this, but for now, I just wanted to give the stage to these artists that I want to credit again, as follows: Altun Gün for the score and sound for Kesik Çayır, Cem Büyükberber as the visual artist and the creative director, Drew Umland in LA who did the motion editing of the video, and then John Canning helping me with the co-production of the video. And I think Francesca is just going to close this part of the event, and then Reem is just going to finish the entire virtual summit with ocean meditation, which we're really proud of doing today with you. And we hope you will be sticking around to see some ocean vibration, where Reem is also going to do a different interpretation of Altun Gün's Kesik Çayır. And I'm endlessly grateful that I was part of this panel, that I was part or able to shape this program a little bit, and endlessly grateful for all the panelists and policymakers, scientists, diplomats who are doing their work in the best way possible for this one ocean, this one planet, on this one island, Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gorkem. Thank you, everybody. Really, I'm very grateful to all of you. This was an amazing panel, a lot of inspiration, a lot of call to action. It's amazing to see how many different backgrounds coming together. And I think this is, again, the power of ocean literacy, the power of the ocean, taking us, giving us the strength and the passion and the energy to move towards, a more sustainable planet.